building's new owners had just sent every tenant notice of a rent increase, a 100% rent increase. For parents who can't afford that, they will have to move their kids to a different school, maybe even a different school district, at a key point in the school year. As a parent, and as someone who works with families who have lost their housing, I know what this disruption does to kids. It knocks them back. It sets them up for failure. Across the county, we're seeing families in this crisis as they pack up and move from school to school, district to district, chasing that elusive, affordable apartment. So I asked county staff what we do. To date, we've been able to find $48,000 in rent assistance through our Sun School Network to help keep the families with kids in the Normandy apartments until the end of the school year. We're still looking for a solution for the other tenants, and time may run out. I'm not telling you the story because it represents success. We may not find the resources to help the other tenants. We don't have enough money to help every family across our county who is experiencing this same crisis. I'm sure you will hear from many people today talking about the need for more housing as the long-term answer to this crisis. And I agree, we need more housing. Particularly, we need more units affordable to those with very low incomes, roughly 30% of the area median. And I know and I applaud this council for being committed to making that a reality. But we have to recognize that for families living on the edge, they can't wait. Every day there are more moms and dads in our county that are going to work at minimum wage. And at the end of the month, if they're lucky, they've got enough to cover the rent. And every day they live in fear that the mail will include a rent increase they can't afford or a no-cause eviction. That's why we dedicated $30 million in new city and county resources last year to homeless services and prevention. With our new investments, we've kept thousands of people in their homes and put thousands of people back into housing. And that's why I hope you'll help me keep that funding in place this next year and ensure that we can keep increasing the number of people we help. But we can't expect taxpayers alone to fill this gap. They can't afford it. I hear from seniors who call my office and say that they're struggling to pay their property tax bills, even when they support the efforts that the city and the county are doing. It breaks my heart. We are in this mess today because the federal government walked away from our seniors, our working mothers, and our children 30 years ago and defunded housing and urban development. So instead of building the thousands of affordable homes we need during these years, we're 25,000 units short. And now, if you can believe anything you hear out of the White House, it sounds as if they're dead set on playing the same game again, walking away from our community at a key moment in our history. So it is up to us. Every one of us in this room today, we need to come together, we need to step up, and every one of us needs to do our part. And I think that's what this ordinance is all about. It's about saying to landlords who are doing the right thing, thank you. And it's about putting in place some safeguards when things go wrong. I know that the City Council is committed to making this work, and if you adopt this ordinance today, it doesn't mean that you won't work with our community to make sure that the rules on the books work for everyone. Thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward and for seeing it through.
Thank you, Deborah. Tough act to follow. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, members of the City Council. I'm Andy Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Human Solutions. For those of you who don't know us all that well, and I think most of you do, but I'll say it anyway, we're a nonprofit organization serving East Portland and East Multnomah County. We have some perspective on this ordinance and the housing crisis the community is experiencing because we see its impacts every day. We provide eviction prevention services that have helped hundreds of families avoid the trauma of homelessness. We operate 2 year-round homeless shelters, one for families and one for single women, and we see what's happening with folks experiencing homelessness. You heard from Mark how those shelters are overflowing on a nightly basis. And we work closely with many private landlords. There are good landlords willing to work with tenants and agencies like ours where we invest dollars that your city council and the county commission have invested in successful programs that are moving people out of homelessness. Tonight, roughly 5,000 Portlanders will be safely inside instead of outside because of what we are able to do. And the great majority of those are kids. That's work that this council has historically invested in, and we thank you for that investment. It's making an enormous difference. The programs we operate do work. Your investment is a good investment. But there simply aren't enough dollars to keep up with the demand, and there are limits to the solutions we can provide in the current context, and that's what this ordinance today is really about. When families come in with rent increases of 10, 20, or even 50% that we're seeing on a very regular basis, rent assistance programs begin to become ineffective. They're just unsustainable if the rents continue to go up unregulated. And unfortunately, we have no program that can respond to a no-cause eviction. There's no amount of money that we can offer that will make that go away. No-cause evictions are simply the most common reason given by families coming into our shelter every night. So we're seeing a huge influx of families coming into the homeless shelter. Most of them are saying they received a no-cause eviction. So what's happening? Well, we're raising a generation of kids in this community who are experiencing residential displacement and homelessness at record rates. Every indicator we have tells us that when kids are forced to move, change schools, experience homelessness, every opportunity they have to succeed in school, to form healthy friendship bonds, to advance physical and emotional health in a positive way, all of those opportunities are destroyed. This is unconscionable. It's not healthy for our kids or our community. You're going to hear today testimony about whether this ordinance is fair. What I would ask you is, are we being fair to our kids? And especially our families and kids of color who experience this disproportionately. Are we being equitable? We talk a lot about equity in this community. This is an opportunity to be equitable. I urge you to vote for this ordinance. It's good public policy for 3 reasons. First, it creates a disincentive for some of the most destabilizing actions, massive rent increases, and no-cause evictions. That's an important disincentive to insert into the system. It also rebalances some of the current burden to respond to those destabilizing actions from the tenant families themselves and from the taxpayers who support the safety net system that respond to them, to the landlords who initiate these actions. And as Commissioner Daly began by saying, for landlords that do not want to bear that burden, there's a simple solution that many good landlords are already practicing. Pace rent increases reasonably and don't use no-cause evictions. Finally, it's good public policy because it extends our limited safety net and public investment even further. It will simply allow us as an agency and agencies like Human Solutions to serve more families by rebalancing the burden. I'll say one last thing, and that's that I fully support this ordinance, but we all know it's not enough. If we don't take swift action behind this ordinance to regulate rents and deal with no-cause evictions, giving somebody a payment that we call a relocation payment, when there's no place to relocate to, it's like a tow truck driver towing your car away and giving you a gas card and saying, this will get you home. It's just not enough. So we need a more systemic and comprehensive response. And when you're ready to take that on, we'll be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a thumbs up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vivian Lyon.
Sorry, I just want to remind people, thumbs up, thumbs down is good because we've got a lot of people we want to hear from today. Thank you.
My name is Vivian Lyon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I represent tenants mostly in Portland. And I am here in support of this proposal, and I'm here to preemptively address an objection that the landlord's lobby has made to this proposal. They put forward a number of nightmare scenarios they claim are or would be unintended consequences of the proposal. All of these scenarios are predicated on using the no-cause eviction process when the for-cause eviction process is available and is more appropriate. They claim that they need to use no-cause evictions because the for-cause process is too expensive and difficult. They don't want to reward bad behavior with relocation costs. For instance, they've imagined a scenario in which a tenant is harassing children and they claim that the landlord would prefer to use the no-cause eviction process to spare the young victims from having to testify. Another scenario they've put forward involves a situation in which a landlord lives on one side of the duplex and the tenant is causing disturbances on the other, the argument being that the landlord's testimony wouldn't be sufficient to show bad behavior. The key thing to note is that using a no-cause eviction in a situation in which a for-cause is called for is an end run around the due process of the tenant. These nightmare scenarios presume that the imaginary tenant is guilty, but in real life we don't know whether a tenant is guilty of the behavior of which they're accused until they get their day in court. The consequences of false accusations of bad behavior can be homelessness. Shouldn't tenants who are suspected of violating the rental agreement get their day in court instead of facing a no-cause eviction, essentially convicted without a trial or the opportunity to present exonerating evidence? Should we really be encouraging landlords to use the no-cause eviction process as a way of depriving tenants from having a chance to defend themselves? The landlord's lobby would further have you believe that a for-cause eviction is much more expensive than a no-cause eviction. They're overstating the case considerably. Sure, trials can be expensive, but if you look through the court records on OECI, you'll see that eviction cases of any kind are frequently resolved prior to trial. They get settled at a first hearing through a stipulated agreement negotiated by the landlord's attorney and the tenant, usually unrepresented, in which the tenant agrees to pay the rent that they owe on a payment plan or agrees to alter their behavior, etc. By the way, this almost always results in the tenant being evicted because they can't hold to the terms of the agreement. In other words, most tenants get evicted with no trial. So the for-cause process is actually pretty cheap. And no-cause evictions are not without their own costs. It's not as simple as issuing the notice and your tenant neatly leaves without a fight. Tenants can contest them through affirmative defenses such as retaliation and habitability issues, as well as contesting that the service was improper. So my contention is that these lobbyists fighting to have the no-cause eviction process without the strings attached of the relocation assistance, their objections are spurious. They don't have a lot to do with the realities of practicing landlord-tenant law, and no-cause should be used. No-cause eviction should be used when there literally is no cause. They should not be a replacement for a situation in which a for-cause eviction would be appropriate. This relocation assistance proposal will not deprive landlords of a necessary tool to deal with that tenant.
I have one question for the attorney. None of us here are landlord-tenant lawyers. So there's another scenario that's been raised in emails and letters we've gotten. I want to give you a chance to respond to it, which is that under this system, there will be an incentive to use the for-cause process more, and that somehow a for-cause eviction prevents that tenant from later being a successful tenant somewhere else. Could you address that?
So they're taking mercy on the tenant by using a no cause when they could have used a for cause?
I'm not judging it. I guess I'm asking the question. One of the things that we try to prevent in our legislating and in our actions is putting any blemishes, if you will, on someone's balance credit sheet or something else that prevents them from being successful tenants. And one thing about our current market is people are being screened very carefully. I guess the question is, does a for-cause eviction, as a legal matter, make it more difficult for that person to find another place to rent?
Yes, a for-cause does make it more difficult for a person to find a place to rent. I'm not sure exactly what point you're making.
It's not my point.
Can I respond?
And that's why I was asking you. You're the lawyer.
It's a good point.
Can I respond briefly to that, Commissioner Fish? So we at Human Solutions are also a landlord. We operate 700 units of affordable housing, and we, by the terms of our financing, are prohibited from using no-cause evictions. So if we have to move to eviction, it has to be for cause, and we are, because of our mission, loath to do that, but occasionally there are circumstances where we do that. Most frequently in that situation, it doesn't proceed to court. There isn't a recorded judgment. The notice is issued, the case is settled before, and it's very easy for us and for any landlord attorney to work with a tenant in that situation, have them better understand the situation that they're facing. The most damaging thing on a tenant's record would be a judgment, but that case can be settled prior to a judgment that was for cause, even if the proceeding was initiated that way.
To make sure I understand this then, the benefit of for-cause eviction process generally is it gives a measure of due process.
Yes.
And as a practical matter, very few of them result in judgment.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Kapoor, for your years of leadership on this.